I checked the departures board at exactly 3 a.m. Every flight said the same thing. Delayed. No destination. No departure time. Just that single blinking word repeated across the endless terminal like a warning nobody else could read. Gate 42 sat behind me beneath flickering fluorescent lights. The plastic chairs were arranged in perfect rows, all empty except for a jacket someone had left draped over the armrest. The sleeves hung too naturally, like invisible arms were still inside it. The airport smelled like stale coffee and recycled air. Cold air pressed from the vents overhead hard enough to dry my throat every time I swallowed. I've been sitting there for hours, or days. I couldn't tell anymore. No windows showed daylight. No clocks moved except the giant digital one above the terminal entrance that remained frozen at 3 a.m. in bright red numbers. I tried asking the gate attendant when boarding would begin, but the desk was empty. It had always been empty. That was the first thing that felt wrong about the airport. The second thing was the hum. A low electrical vibration buried inside the walls. Constant. Mechanical. Like the entire building was breathing through clenched teeth. At first I barely noticed it. Now it filled every silence. Sometimes I thought I could hear whispers hiding underneath it. The overhead speakers crackled suddenly. Final boarding call for your regrets at gate 0. The voice was soft and feminine, perfectly calm. Passengers are reminded not to look outside. Static swallowed the message. The lights flickered once overhead. Then silence returned. I stood up so quickly my chair screeched backward across the floor. Gata 0. I scanned the terminal signs. Gata 42. Gata 14. Gate 40 farther down the corridor. No gate 0. No exits either. Just more hallway. More fluorescent lights. More empty seats. I started walking. My footsteps echoed sharply against the polished floor tiles. The sound unnerved me immediately because after a few seconds, I realized there were more footsteps than mine. A second pair, soft, dragging slightly behind me. I stopped walking. The other footsteps stopped too. The terminal stretched endlessly ahead beneath rows of buzzing lights. Closed gift shops lined the walls with metal shutters pulled down tight. Inside them, shelves remained fully stocked. Magazines, neck pillows, cheap souvenirs coated in dust. One store had dozens of stuffed animals staring outward through the security grate. All their glass eyes reflected the fluorescent lights. I kept moving. Gata 39, Gata 38, Gata 37. The numbers continued downward exactly like they should, except the hallway never ended. No intersections, no baggage claim, no security checkpoints. Just gates counting endlessly towards something I could never reach. That's when I noticed the reflections. The terminal windows were black mirrors at night. Nothing visible outside except my own pale reflection moving beside the glass. At least, I thought it was only mine, until I saw my mother standing behind me. I spun around so fast my pulse exploded in my throat. Nobody there, only empty chairs, the humming lights, cold air drifting from unseen vents. Slowly, I looked back toward the glass. She was still there in the reflection, wearing the blue hospital sweater she died in. Her face looked thin, exhausted, disappointed. I stumbled backward. No, she didn't move her mouth, but I heard her anyway. You never visited enough. The overhead lights dimmed for half a second. When they brightened again, the reflection was gone. I began walking faster. Then faster. The terminal responded strangely to panic. The faster I walked, the more distorted everything became. The lights stretched longer overhead. The hallways widened unnaturally. The hum inside the walls deepened until it sounded almost alive. Gata 31, Gata 30, Gata 20. I passed a coffee shop with overturned chairs stacked on tables. A cup still sat on one counter beneath a layer of oily film. Fresh steam rose from it. I could smell burnt coffee grounds. Someone had been there recently. A soft laugh echoed somewhere nearby. I froze. Not ahead of me. Behind me. I turned slowly. A man stood near gate 32. Tall. Motionless. his face hidden in shadow. The fluorescent lights above him buzzed violently. I couldn't make out his features, but something about his posture felt horribly familiar. Then he stepped slightly forward, and I recognized him instantly. Me, not exactly. Older, eyes hollow, skin grayish under the airport lights, like a corpse left too long in cold storage. I backed away instinctively. He didn't follow. He simply raised one finger and pointed farther down the terminal, toward the lower gate numbers. Then the lights flickered. He vanished. The speaker crackled again. Final boarding call for your regrets at gate 0. Long pause. Gate change unavailable. This time the voice sounded closer, almost intimate, like someone whispering directly into my ear. I started running. The airport blurred around me. Closed restaurants, endless carpets, silent escalators leading nowhere. Gate 20, Gate 19, Gate 18. The footsteps behind me returned. Closer now, not trying to catch me, matching my pace exactly. I refused to look back. The terminal air became colder the farther I went. My breath fogged faintly in front of me, and then I noticed something impossible. The gate numbers had started repeating. Gate 12, Gate 11, Gate 10. Then suddenly, Gate 14, Gate 13, Gate 12 again. The hallway was looping. Panic clawed through my chest. I turned around. The corridor behind me stretched impossibly far, disappearing into pale fluorescent haze. And standing beneath every fifth light were people, dozens of them, perfectly still, watching me. Some wore airport uniforms. Some wore hospital gowns. Some wore clothes from different decades entirely. But all of them shared one thing. I recognized every face. My father, my ex-girlfriend, my childhood friend who drowned when we were 16, my grandfather inside his coffin suit. Every person I failed, every person I abandoned, every person I missed the chance to save. Their faces stared blankly toward me from across the endless terminal. None of them blinked. The overhead announcement interrupted the silence again. Passenger arrival confirmed. The voice glitched violently this time, words overlapping themselves. Welcome home. The lights above me suddenly shut off. One by one, darkness consumed the terminal behind me in long, snapping waves. The figures disappeared inside it, but I could still hear footsteps approaching rapidly through the black. Not walking anymore. Running. I ran too. Gate 8, Gate 7, Gate 6. The lights ahead flickered violently as if struggling to stay alive. The hum inside the walls became deafening. Then, I saw it, at the very end of the corridor, a gate that hadn't been there before. The sign above it glowed red. Gate 9. My stomach dropped. The boarding desk sat empty beneath dim lights. One final hallway stretched beyond the gate entrance into complete darkness. And outside the enormous terminal windows beside it, there was no runway. No planes, no city lights, nothing, just endless black emptiness. Like the airport wasn't built on Earth at all. The overhead speaker crackled softly one last time. Final boarding call. Pause. For flight 42. My blood turned cold. That was my flight number. The flight I barely remembered boarding. The flight I'd fallen asleep on. The flight that disappeared somewhere over the ocean 3 months ago. Memories hit me all at once. Screaming passengers, oxygen masks, fire outside the window, the feeling of falling forever through darkness. My knees nearly gave out. No, but deep down, I already knew. The airport wasn't a place people passed through. It was a place people got stuck. A terminal for souls too guilty to move on. The footsteps behind me stopped. I turned slowly. Hundreds of silent figures now filled the hallway. Watching, waiting. Their faces looked exhausted, trapped, just like mine. Then the gate doors beside me slid open with a soft hydraulic hiss. Warm darkness waited on the other side, and somewhere far inside it, I heard the sound of an airplane engine starting.